back. Let's turn to my favourite story of the day. Rude or just French? That's the question a tribunal in Canada must decide after a waiter was fired for being aggressive with his colleagues. The waiter is actually arguing that his former employer is wrong. He is not rude. It is just part of his culture. That's what he's saying. Well, I'm joined here in the studio by Fred Sirieix, French maitre d' of the Michelin star restaurant Galvin at Windows, and also Andy Hayler, a restaurant critic who's the only person to have eaten in every three-star Michelin restaurant around the world. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here on the programme. Fred, to you first of all. I mean, what do you make of this case?
Well, I think it's completely ridiculous. I think that, if you are rude, you're rude. It doesn't matter where you come from, whether you're French or English or Italian or Chinese. Rude is rude. And I think that it's totally arrogant and ignorant of him to claim this. But also, I hope he's just going to be thrown out of court, really promptly, because this is just not the image that you want to show, really.
I mean, he is arguing that French culture tends to be more direct and more expressive. I mean, are there cultural differences at play here?
I mean, he's looking at stereotype, and it's like people say, for example, in the French kiss. I mean, we don't go to French kissing school, it's not what we do. So I think he's just away with the fairies, really, this guy. I think that's what it is, really, the bottom line.
Andy, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Fred. I mean, of course, cultures vary, so service in certain kinds of restaurants may be different of a different style, but there is no inherent reason why people in French restaurants are more or less rude than they are in restaurants in Germany or Japan or
He talks
America.
about being trained, and of course French waiters are trained. He talks about a culture of honest and professional personality. That's what he's developed over years in the French hospitality industry. I mean, it is slightly different, isn't it, in terms of that sort of training that French waiters get?
Yeah, I think it varies a lot, actually. But I mean, there was more of an apprenticeship system in France for waiters, and some at the very high-end restaurants, some of them will go to hospitality school and so on. It's not universal, by the way. I mean, you still get people doing casual waiting jobs in France as well.
And how does this fit in, what you've heard, with your experiences? I mean, there you go to all those restaurants around the world. Does it fit in? Does it not fit in?
I think that the service in very high-end 3 Michelin-star restaurants, for example, in France, is usually superb. It's extremely professional. It may be depending on the style of the restaurant, it may be slightly stiffer, or it may be more relaxed or friendly. But I mean, that's about the particular culture of the restaurant. It's nothing to do with whether they're French or German or Italian or anything else.
What's the worst service you've had?
Well, just the other day, actually, I was at a restaurant in London, where I had a great deal of difficulty getting a coffee. So much so, at the end of the meal, that I tried. Despite it was almost empty dining room, I actually ended up using my mobile phone. I phoned the actual reception desk, and the waitress finally came over and said, "Would you mind bringing me a coffee over to the table?" So that wasn't great. But,
Fred is smiling and shaking his head.
And that was a 1-star Michelin restaurant as well.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's about attentiveness, attention to detail, and this maitre d', he works in the hospitality industry, it's about service, but service is much more than just service. It's about the connection, the bonds that we create and share with people. It's about making people feel special. And if obviously you are rude and creating this kind of atmosphere within your workplace, your colleagues, which may impact on the guest, then you're completely flaunting the very values of the industry that you say that you work in.
But you spoke earlier about stereotypes. It is interesting that the French tourism authorities have been trying to clamp down exactly on this, trying to urge their waiters in different parts of France to be rather jollier, to perhaps adopt the American type of service. So it's not totally a stereotype, is it?
No, I mean, I think, look, I do a lot of work with various organizations around the world to help them with their service provision, and you're talking about very good, luxurious brands. And it doesn't matter that you are good, what matters is that you want to be better. And I think that it's important for the French, because, tourism is about 7% of the GDP, 80 million people visit France every day, so they have an interest in getting better and better at what they do. Now, I'm sure it's not going to be perfect. You go to France, not perfect. You go to any other countries, not perfect. But you need to improve what you do and get better at what you do.
Two quick final thoughts. Andy, I was reading some of your accounts of bad restaurants, waiters simply not knowing where to take the food to different tables. You gave another example now. What are the really top end? What is good waiting? I read a lovely little tale that you told about a bottle of wine from Ritz.
Yeah, example, one time I was going to a restaurant, Hakkasan in Mayfair, and I'd just been to a wine tasting at the Ritz before, and I had a sort of bottle from the tasting, which I left in the cloakroom. I had my meal, that was fine, went to pick up the bottle, and there was the bottle in its Ritz bag. That's fine. And then the maitre d' came over and said, "I'm very sorry, Miss Taylor, but there was an accident in the cloakroom. I'm afraid your bottle of wine was broken." And I was a bit puzzled because I said, "Well, it looks like the bottle's there and there's the bag." He said, "No, well, we noticed the name on the bag, so we sent a waiter down to the Ritz to try to find an exact replica of the bottle that you had, and we couldn't find one because they left. So we bought you a better bottle."
My goodness
so
me!
That was
Fred, just a final
good.
quick thought,
Sure.
because you mentioned that you hope it gets thrown out. The authorities, I mean, the employers wanted it to be thrown out. The courts have said, no, we will hear this. So there is a possibility he could win, and you're going to have to rethink just about everything you've told me.
No, I think they just want to have a good laugh in Canada. You know, that's what they want to do.
Well, listen, thanks both of you so much for coming in. It's an astonishing story, and thank you for your thoughts and your experiences.
Thank you.